This reading is taken from the testimony Christian Experience, A Paradox by Michelle M. Kiggins, BAS, 2023, ISBN number 978-1365-277061. Available on multiple platforms, including Apple Books and Audible. My history allowed date rape, physical abuse, drug addiction, witchcraft, tarot readings, smoking, drinking, social media manipulation. Then, one time I was asked to denounce God and worship my partner instead, because they were proclaiming to be God. I allowed Hertz frequency manipulations, anger, loss of self-control, plus I was addicted to narcotic medication for over 2 decades. I was being overprescribed by my physician, to say the least. Darkness was inhabiting my life. This is taken from the chapter called The Change. Many people noticed I had changed, and not in a good way. I was in a desperate, never-ending self-harm roller coaster ride of darkness. I was constantly punishing myself, and I wasn't loving myself or anyone around me, even though I acted like I was above all with that awful behavior. I wasn't. I desperately needed to get to the bottom of myself, and some say that is only the beginning, that you have to get to the end of yourself to get to the beginning of God. That is a quote from Jim Woodford, 2017. Years before, I had left a physically, emotionally, narcissistic, abusive relationship, one that ended abruptly with physical harm, emotional abuse, and threats to my children. Then I moved into a local college campus with 3 small children and put myself through school. However, the following year, my biological sister married my spouse on my birthday, which sent me on a journey of self-isolation and the beginning of discovering my testimony. Back in 2009, I had finished a business degree and half a dozen training programs on child rearing and nurturing. I also had gained certifications with the Army National Guard for family readiness, and of course dealing with trauma and PTSD. I had obtained certification with the Wyoming Business Council working with people as a service professional. Plus, I cleaned people's houses on the side and owned my own business for over a decade. I felt promoted in my heart then. So I had started the manuscript for Christian Experience, A Paradox. I was also trained in breaking free from domestic violence in my own life and helping others through a volunteer liaison position that I had created, which helped with resources for women in the community for over 9 years. I thought I had been convinced enough through people's traumatic stories and my own personal history to stop being in abusive relationships. The statistics are staggering, and I knew that most women who have been abused multiple times by the same partner end up in the morgue. But I was sadly mistaken. The cycle hadn't been broken, and I was tremendously miserable. I fell right back into all the cycles I thought had been broken. I had even spoken with multiple book publishers and had a design in mind for my book. However, every time I would write a chapter, I froze and sank into utter darkness. I was constantly in shock after seeing and hearing what I was writing about. It took me 5 years to write 90 pages. I wasn't okay. My life, my experiences, my upbringing, the childhood abuse, which included sexual abuse that started when I was just 4 years old, the physical abuse, the drug abuse, and self-harm. I couldn't grasp the story, like it wasn't coming from me. I had serious PTSD. I was experiencing all of the signs of PTSD trauma in all forms, manifesting through severe agitation, irritability, and hostility. I would yell at my children and try to hit them. I was constantly acting out through hypervigilance. And at one point, I worked 23 jobs. My self-destructive behavior and social isolation, the flashbacks, the gross fear, severe anxiety, and mistrust was horrendous. I would lock myself in my room and most of the time studying or reading over 2,000 books and at least 4 versions of the Bible. I had severe loss of interest and pleasure in activities. I felt guilty all the time. I was seriously lonely. My insomnia caused me to work 16 hours a day because when I went to sleep, I'd have recurring nightmares of traumatic events I experienced as a child and young adult. I was constantly emotionally detached and had unwanted thoughts and voices in my head all the time. Plus, I was always suicidal, but I never told anyone. I actually didn't even tell my counselor during the weekly sessions of intense one-on-one counseling I attended that lasted for 7 years. I can attest to the fact that my children suffered from my lack of ability to be compassionate and caring while they were being raised. But I was trying to keep my trauma hidden from them. Even to this day, they aren't aware of much of my story. I actually had a disconnected trauma bond with multiple sexual partners because of rape and incest, plus an unhealthy detached attribute suffering from substance use disorder. I had never dealt with any of the drug addiction I suffered endlessly with since I was a teenager. I just ignored it, hoping it would go away. But I kept returning to my abusers. The Testimony, Christian Experience, A Paradox, written by Michelle M. Kiggins, BAS, 2023. Available on multiple platforms including Audible and Apple Books. Plus worldwide coverage brought to you by Spotify, Find a Way Voices.